Welcome, everyone. We're just going to give it a few minutes for a few others to join, and then we'll get started. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Sarah, and I head up the equity and grants team here at Swoop. And today we're going to run through the process of how we can help your clients raise equity and other services also provided by our team. So I think we can get started. Okay, so this is actually the final webinar in this webinar lineup. So hopefully you've all previously tuned into the loans webinar, the grants one with Nana, savings with Annie, and now best to last, we're finishing off with equity. So these are just the types of investors that you can potentially raise from with help from Swoop, but we will go into this in a little bit more detail later on. So firstly, what we're looking out for in a startup that we can help is also what investors are looking for and also what you should be looking for when sending a client over our way. So we want to see that the business is scalable, meaning that investors are looking for their 10x, 20, 50x return on their investment. So this is something that we also want to see on our side. So this is kind of ruling out those smaller lifestyle businesses and businesses that just don't intend on scaling. The team is really important for an early stage company, especially for like pre-seed if they're just starting off. So things we look for are, do they have experience in this area? Have they built and sold a similar company before? What's their track record? Can they make this business succeed and scale? So yeah, as I said, this is probably more important in the earlier stage because they haven't proven themselves yet. So this is something for you to look out for. And then market size. So TAM, SAM, SOM, they need to have a scalable market and a big opportunity. And then finally, traction and business model. So I would say this is probably one of the most important things that we look out for, whether you're earlier stage or later. So what revenue are you generating? Are you generating revenue? How many clients do you have? What's your roadmap to profitability? Do you have multiple sources of revenue? And things like that, because this is really what investors are looking out for. It depends on which sector you're coming from. So we do definitely still work with clients that are pre-revenue. It just depends. I would say consumer brands, just the way the market is right now, investors are looking for more revenue. So any kind of consumer B2C consumer brands that we work with generally are already generating quite significant revenue, and are already potentially in supermarkets or are doing quite well on their go-to-market side already, but that does just depend on which sector you're coming from. If you're pre-revenue, I would say the other 3 points are more important if you don't have that kind of revenue and that traction yet. So that's just something to bear in mind. So this is the equity package that we can provide. It's called our Raise Ready package, and basically we are getting startups to kind of prepared to go out to investors and also facilitating those intro to the investors. So we do a very thorough pitch deck review, just getting them ready to kind of go out to those institutional investors, evaluation report, which I will go into in a bit more detail just after this, and then a practice investor pitch. So we give them feedback on their pitch and then try and ask them questions that we think investors could ask them at first call or if they get to investment committee. And then anyone who kind of buys this package also gets shortlisted to pitch at our pitch events, which we host a few times a year, and investors attend those events. So really great to pitch at that. And then I think the biggest pull for this package is definitely the investor outreach. So in our network, we have over 450 active investors, and that is predominantly VCs, but also angels, angel syndicates, and family offices, ranging from kind of pre-seed to Series B, investing in all different types of sectors, different investment thesis. So when we work with a startup to try and help them get investment, we match the startup to an investor that we think could be interested and facilitate those warm intros that will hopefully result in that startup raising some funds from these investors. And worst case, if they're not interested, if they've spoken to them or if they've just seen their pitch deck and there's a reason as to why not, we usually get good feedback as well. Feedback that is very useful for the startup to get as to why maybe someone isn't interested in speaking to them. And then we do charge a 5% success fee on any introductions, anything that is raised through an introduction from us. So just to know that this is the equity package specifically for advisors. If there is anyone on this call that isn't coming kind of from the advisor route, we have a slightly different package. Just email me after this and I can send that over to you. Okay, so what are we looking for from startups before they come to us and before they go to investors? So pitch deck is the most important thing. It's the first thing that we review. It's the first thing that investors review. They don't have to have the pitch deck in a perfect state. They have to have one for us to be able to speak to them, and kind of just know where they're at and if we could potentially work with them. If they don't have a pitch deck, this is something that we can also help with. So we work with a partner who can help them build a pitch deck really easily, and we can give them a discount code for that. So if that's something also that your client's interested in, send them our way too. They also have to have things ready like their financials, their pipeline, if they have any patents, documentation on that. But that's more important when actually going to the investors. They do also have to have their data room ready, definitely before they speak to investors as well. So this isn't something that we actually can help with, but we can recommend some other partners that can help them kind of get that together. Okay, so looking a little bit into these tax schemes more, so SEIS and EIS, a lot of funds have actually emerged from these two schemes as they're obviously tax efficient and quite attractive for investors, be that VCs and angels. So SEIS is more for pre-seed, early stage companies, and a company can apply for this if they're 3 years or younger. They can raise under up to 250 under the scheme, and then investors can write off 50% of that off their tax bill. And also there's no CGT either. So that's why this is super attractive for angels and VCs. So we definitely recommend a startup trying to get into the scheme if they're starting to raise at that pre-seed stage. And then EIS is for companies that are a little bit later and a bit further on. So they have to be 7 years or younger, have to have only raised up to 12 million, and then investors can write off 30%. So we do have a lot of VCs and angels in our network that will only invest under these two schemes. So it's really important that, a company can get this if they're eligible. And this is something that we can actually help with. So we can do the whole application for them and hopefully get that across the line and then open up a lot more investors for them. So, we've worked with a lot of startups. We helped them get their SEIS and then we've helped them actually raise funds after that from our specific SEIS VC funds. So if you have any clients that you think could be eligible for this, definitely send them across to us. So something else that we can also help with is a valuation report. So this is actually included in our equity package, but we also can provide this just as a standalone feature. It's a really nice report, 5 different valuation methods, both qualitative, quantitative, and then a weighting is put across the five, and then you kind of get one final valuation. You can brand it with your logos and put your most recent financials on it, past rounds, some other qualitative factors. It's quite long. It's nice to just hand over to investors. I'm working with a startup now that wanted to go out to the market at a higher valuation. I worked on this valuation report for them, got a higher valuation that they were thinking of initially. And now they can just hand this over to investors and kind of justify that valuation with this comprehensive report. So if you have a client that potentially, I guess, is thinking, we're not sure what valuation we should go out with, or we're hoping to go out at a higher one, this is definitely a nice report that they can have ready to just hand over to any investors, be that VCs or angels that are interested. Okay, so what is kind of our sweet spot for the team? So as I said before, VCs are the investors that we work with the most and that I'd say invest the most in any companies that we've worked with. Then we have angels, angel syndicates that are super active, and then family offices. We work with companies from pre-seed to Series A. That's kind of where we've seen the most success, and that's where our investor side sits on the most. We're completely agnostic, as our investors kind of range from agnostic funds to specific sector-specific funds. 150K and onwards is usually our sweet spot. We will try and help someone, I guess, if they're trying to raise 100K, but 150 is usually where we see the most success. And then, yeah, SEIS is something that we're definitely interested in if a company has that. and then if they're also generating revenue. So SEIS and I guess good traction is something that we really like to see and we've seen the most success from. Here are a few examples of companies that we've helped funded before. Just so you know, they kind of range across all different industries. So we have renewable energy, a data company, accounting software, consumer, and a fintech. So really, we do work with any types of companies. We probably see the most success in some sort of SaaS company, but we've also helped hardware companies, various funds, and consumer brands. But yeah, we're open to seeing anything and across all sectors, really. Okay, and that concludes the slides. So I'm just going to stop sharing and open the floor to any questions that we have. Okay, Remy, over what timelines are they looking to see the scalability, please? This really depends on what stage you're starting at, because obviously, if you're coming in pre-seed, it's quite difficult. You don't have that traction yet. If it's pre-seed, really, it depends on what your revenue models are. So obviously, recurring revenue, B2B SaaS models, investors see that as scalable. You haven't proven that yet, I guess, in pre-seed if you're coming in with like a med tech company or a consumer brand. But really, over 5 years is kind of the timeline that investors are looking for. It depends. Some, I mean, want to exit, I guess, in 7 to 10 years. So they'll be looking, that far ahead. But within 5 years, hopefully, an investor will be looking at, I would say, 100 million in revenue. So just to keep that in mind. And then another question. Yeah, I think I probably answered this one. So what sectors investors are interested in? Yeah, as I said, agnostic, all types of sectors. Um, does anybody else have any questions they want to put in the Q&A box? Okay, which countries? So our network is predominantly in the UK, just as that's where our main operations are. We also have a network in Ireland, Central Europe, um, South Africa, North America, and Australia. We've probably helped startups raise mainly in the UK and across Europe. We are starting to build out kind of a team around North America and kind of an equity function there. So um, I would say in the next 6 months or so, hopefully we'll have built out the network there a lot more, but predominantly UK and Europe. If anyone has any more questions, just add them into the box. Okay. Um, okay, talk about the management team of the company and how important that is. By the management team, I presume you mean the co-founders. So generally what we see the most success is more than one founder. So two founders, or three even. One of them at least has to have some experience in the area that you're building. So if you're building an accounting software company, hopefully one of the co-founders is a previous accountant, has 10 plus years working in accounting, knows the area inside and out, and then potentially the other co-founder is technical and can actually build the product. That's like a perfect combo. But it's super important that at least one co-founder has to have domain experience, and proven success, I would say. Okay. Is there a preferred pitch deck template? We have a template that we kind of use if you sign up to the package, and that's what we use as like a perfect template, and that's like the feedback that we will give you on. So if that is something that you're interested in, definitely let us know and we can help you with that. Um, so can I go over SEIS and EIS again? Bill, do you want to just let me know specifically what you'd like to know more about, and maybe I can be a bit more targeted with that. Um, is the package 1,000 when you charge? So the 1,500 package is an upfront cost on the startup. That's just a one-off cost, and that includes like all the investor outreach, pitch deck, valuation report, and the practice pitch, and some other services as well for non-advisor clients. Some of the advisor clients have already got this service through the advisor team. So that's just a one-off fee. And then if you actually raise funds through one of the intros to an investor that we've made, then there's a 5% charge success fee payable to us from the startup as well. So I hope that's clear. If a client were interested in all the various packages, would they get a discount, or are they still individually charged? They're individually charged. Yeah, we don't offer any sort of group packages, but potentially you can speak to your customer success manager, and maybe this is something that we could speak about. But as for now, yeah, they're all individually charged. But that's why it's I mean, what I think is the best value is to just pay the 1,500 for the equity package, because the valuation report alone is 500, and all the investor outreach. I mean, I think it's invaluable if you're struggling to raise, and we can help you raise and take that time off your hands. I guess a lot of times startups spend a lot of time doing cold outreach, trying to get in front of investors, and if we can free up their time, it's definitely worth it, I would say. I think that's Bill. Happy to go over SEAS and EIS again if you want to let me know specifically. But they're two, I mean, SEIS is a tax scheme specifically for early stage companies. So for anyone literally starting from the start, EIS is for later stage companies that have probably already raised a few million and potentially could be, I don't know, over 1 million in revenue so far already. The startup has to actually apply for SEIS and EIS to kind of get into that tax scheme. And then once they have that, it just means that opens up a lot of doors for any VC funds that only invest in SEIS companies or EIS companies, because obviously it's more tax beneficial for them also. So we can help the startup apply. You have to apply with HMRC. We can help the startup apply for that and get onto that tax efficient scheme for SEIS and EIS. Okay, if there aren't any more questions, Remy has a question. On average, how long has it taken to raise funds for startups? So this, yeah, isn't an easy answer, I would say. Once we kind of facilitate the intro and you're speaking to an investor, it really does just depend on then the VC's timeline or the investor's timeline. I would say on average, you're looking 8 to 10 weeks roughly from like initial conversations. If they're interested, probably eight to 12 weeks from first speaking to an investor to then actually signing a term sheet and getting the funds. It depends on which fund. Some have a more lengthy process, but usually the way it works is you'll have a first call with an investor, someone quite junior, and then you'll probably have a second call with someone else more senior on the team. Then they'll speak internally, and then you probably have some sort of investment committee with partners and more senior staff. And then they kind of do like a traffic light system usually, or a yes and no, and they vote. And then that's when you kind of get the term sheets that can go back and forth as well if that's a lead investor. So it varies, but roughly 8 to 12 weeks. Alrighty, if there aren't any other questions, I think we can wrap this up. This is recorded, so this is going to be sent to everybody. If you do have any more questions, you can just email either the equity email, so that's at the end of the slides. It's just equity@Swoop Funding, or you can email myself, and I can answer any questions. But yeah, hopefully this helped, and yeah, hopefully you're thinking of a lot of kind of startups or small companies that you're working with that potentially could benefit from our services. So definitely send them our way if you think that they're a fit. And yeah, hopefully, yeah, I hope this was helpful.